At some point, you stopped being part of the center and became part of the background. Nobody announced it. Nobody warned you. There was no moment you could circle and point to, but your body noticed before your pride did. It started when you realized the room didn't pause for you anymore. Conversations didn't wait. Decisions didn't lean in your direction. Things kept moving whether you were fully there or only half present. You were still included. That's what makes it hard to explain. Still invited, still mentioned, still technically there. But something about your presence stopped having weight. You can feel the difference between being in a place and being counted. You didn't disappear. You were downgraded. Now, when you speak, people nod while already thinking about what's next. When you stop talking, nothing needs to be filled. When you're quiet, no one goes looking for the silence. You used to be a reference point. Now, you're just part of the scenery. And the disturbing part is how smoothly it happened. You began editing yourself without being asked. Shorter opinions, softer reactions, better timing. You learned when to step in and, more importantly, when to step out. You started saying whatever works, like it was a personality trait. You started arriving a little earlier, leaving a little later, as if being more available would make you more necessary. It doesn't. You remember when people used to look at you first when something happened, not because they were being polite, because that's where their attention naturally went. Now their eyes drift to somewhere else and come back to you later, if they come back at all. And you're still there? Of course you are. You always are. That's why this works. Nothing ended, nothing broke. There's no story to tell, just a quiet repositioning you're not supposed to notice. How do you complain about something that never officially happened? How do you argue against a change that arrived without a sound? You see it in the small things. Replies that close instead of open. Invitations that don't need you to exist. Plans that don't bend around your absence. If you vanished for a week, it would take a while before anyone felt the difference. Not because you don't matter, but because your presence is no longer structural. There was a time when your silence created tension. Now it blends in. You can pull back and nothing reaches for you. You can leave early and the night keeps its shape. You're not excluded. You're just optional. And nobody chose this. It formed the way habits form, the way dust settles, the way people adjust to furniture they walk past every day. You noticed it in the waiting for answers, waiting for confirmations, waiting to be fit in, waiting to be considered. You told yourself it meant nothing, but your body was already keeping score. It always does, because there's a difference between being present and being needed, and you're starting to realize which one you are. It usually starts with something so small you almost miss it. A moment where you say something and the room doesn't bend around it anymore. Not silence, not rejection, just continuation. The conversation keeps its speed. The energy doesn't shift. Your words land and fall through the floor like they were never meant to be caught. You stay in the same position a second longer than you should. Your face holds the expression you brought into the moment. Then you fix it. You always fix it. That's when you begin to understand something without admitting it yet. You are no longer necessary for things to keep moving. At first, you assume it's noise. Timing? A coincidence? You tell yourself everyone has off days. But then it happens again and again. You start noticing how often you are the only one bridging the gap. How often you are the one who checks in, who follows up, who makes sure nothing breaks. And then one day, you realize what happens if you don't. Nothing comes looking for you. Not because you're unwanted. Not because anyone is trying to erase you. Because you've become easy to place, easy to move, easy to work around. You didn't arrive here by accident. You trained for it. You learned how to be smooth, how to not interrupt the flow, how to keep things comfortable. You learned how to soften your opinions before they left your mouth. You learned how to read the room and shrink just enough to fit inside it. You learned how to be low friction. It felt like maturity. It felt like being evolved. It felt like being safe. What it actually did was make you optional. There's a specific kind of quiet that shows up when your weight in a room changes. It's not cold. It's not cruel. It's not even personal. It's just thinner. Conversations don't lean toward you anymore. Messages don't carry momentum. Your presence becomes something that can be included or excluded without changing the shape of the day. You can tell because plans don't adjust around you now. They used to. There was a time when your availability affected the schedule, when people checked before deciding, when your absence created a gap that needed to be addressed. Now things are announced, not discussed. You're informed, not consulted. You're not pushed out. You're placed to the side. And the most unsettling part is how reasonable it all looks. No one is doing anything wrong. No one is being unkind. There's no confrontation to point to. No moment to quote. Just a gradual reorganization where your role becomes lighter and lighter until it's more like decoration than support. You start hearing yourself say certain phrases more often. Whatever works. I'm flexible. It's not a big deal. You say them so easily, they stop sounding like choices and start sounding like your personality. And underneath that, something else is happening. You're teaching people that you will adapt before they have to, so they stop adapting. You're teaching people that you don't need to be defended, so you aren't. You're teaching people that your needs are negotiable, so they always are. You begin to notice patterns that are too consistent to ignore. When something better comes up, you're the one who gets shifted. When time gets tight, you're the one who gets fit in later. When decisions get heavy, your name is the easiest to move. Not because you're the least liked, because you're the least resistant. You tell yourself it doesn't hurt. You tell yourself you don't need to be central. You tell yourself you prefer being in the background. You tell yourself attention was never the point. And then your body reacts before your mind finishes the story. A small drop in your chest, a quiet, familiar tightening. That brief private disappointment you immediately bury under logic. There's a look people get when they're about to inconvenience you. It's not guilt, it's relief. Relief because they already know the answer. You've become dependable in the way that makes you easy to overlook. Predictable in the way that makes you safe to deprioritize. Always reasonable, always adjustable, always okay with less. You didn't decide to become this. You just kept choosing comfort over friction. And now the world treats you like something that will always make room. You start noticing that changes are no longer presented to you. They're just delivered. Sometimes they're not even mentioned. You're expected to discover them by adapting in real time. And you do. You always do. Because that's who you've become. Every group has a structure, even when no one talks about it. A silent arrangement of whose time matters more, whose absence is felt, whose presence is protected. You can see where you stand by what has to be rearranged when you're not there, and what doesn't. You're not invisible. That's what makes it confusing. You're liked. You're welcomed. You're easy to be around. You're just not chosen first. There's a moment that stays with you. A conversation you used to anchor now flows around someone else. Not aggressively, not intentionally, just naturally. They're the one people respond to now. They're the one who gets the questions, the reactions, the attention. You're still there, just slightly outside the frame. You notice that when something important happens, you find out later, not because anyone hid it, because it didn't occur to anyone that you'd need to know immediately. You notice that when people say, "we," sometimes you're not actually included in the shape of that word anymore. You don't say anything. You tell yourself you're being mature, but what you're really being is quiet. And silence teaches people exactly what it can afford to lose. You start living in a smaller emotional posture, taking up less space, wanting less visibly, needing less loudly. You convince yourself this is humility, but it's actually erosion. Nothing dramatic happens. That's the danger. No doors slam, no arguments explode, no friendships end. The world just keeps rearranging itself with you slightly less central each time, until one day you realize something uncomfortable. If you stopped showing up, it would take a while before anyone felt the gap. Not because you don't matter, because you taught them how to function without needing you. There's a difference between being appreciated and being convenient. You've been living on the convenient side for longer than you want to admit. You see it in how people respond when you say you can't come. They don't try to move anything. They don't look for another time. They just accept it and continue, like the plan was always meant to exist without you. You see it in how your opinions land. They're acknowledged, nodded at, then quietly bypassed. You see it in how often you're the one who makes room. And you probably told yourself, this is normal, that this is just how life works, that people get busy, that priorities shift, that nothing here is personal. But it is. It just doesn't look like an attack. It looks like comfort. People are the most careless with what they believe will always be there. At some point, you stopped being something that had to be chosen and became something that was simply assumed. And assumptions don't get defended. They don't get protected. They don't get fought for. They don't get chosen first. If you're still here, it means something in this found you. Not a message, a reflection. You don't have to decide anything tonight. Just notice what stayed with you when the noise faded. Maybe write one sentence in the comments. Nothing polished, just the part you recognized. If this space has been quietly useful, you can leave a small mark by tapping like. And if you want to keep meeting these mirrors, you can subscribe and come back when you need a few minutes. Just a place where patterns get named. You don't have to disappear here, but you don't have to speak loudly either. Stay if it feels true. Leave if it doesn't. Keep the part of you that noticed.